Now, let me tell you how to negotiate your salary. In a negotiation, I suggest you let the other side ensure the monetary rewards. I'll give you another personal example. When I was hired at my first job, my future boss asked me what salary I wanted. Although I knew what whoever says an amount first loses, I said I want $500. He was happy to offer me this amount, given that the former employee, whose place I was going to take, was paid much more than that. So, as a general rule, it's good to let the other person make you an offer first. I kidnapped your son, Chris. Give me $1 million or I'll kill him. Come on, give me the money or I'll cut your son's throat right now, says the kidnapper. After a few minutes in which the father sat to think, he says, "How could I do this? So you are okay with the fact that I will kill your son, Mr. Voss? Sorry, Robert, but how do I know he's alive now?" Chris, the father of the kidnapped son, apologized and told the kidnapper by name precisely because he was looking for more warmth in the interaction. He wants to make the kidnapper give up his attitude of a bulldog by which he tries to put him in a corner. This is how the author Chris Voss begins the book Never Split the Difference, with a game of roles between him and the best negotiator from Harvard, Robert Mnookin, the alleged kidnapper. Chris Voss spent more than 2 decades in the FBI and was the best negotiator in the international kidnappings. Returning to the role play, he calls this tactic calibrated questions. That is, the other party can answer, but not with determined answers. The role of this question is to buy him time while giving the opponent the illusion that he is in control. The alleged kidnapper started to get angry because he took him out of the questions and answers as he had originally thought. It made him think about how he can solve Chris's problems. And to every question, Chris answered with even more questions. This won him at least one more day in which his son would live. Robert, Harvard's chief negotiator, admitted defeat and said that he might have something to learn from the FBI. The author says that there are too many people who negotiate like robots, who have a predetermined script and depending on what their opponent says, they know what they are going to say. It's just that life is much too complex and unpredictable. You can do A, B, C and then choose X, but sometimes you have to do A, D, then K. As an idea, whether you are at the office or at family dinner, don't avoid honest and clear conflicts. This technique will give you the best price on buying a car, a higher salary, and the biggest donation. It will also save your marriage, friends, and family. I will tell you from my own experience that when I went to negotiate a salary increase, I created a small conflict without wanting to because my boss felt compelled to give me that increase. Although this was not my intention, and even if I did not receive the requested increase, in the end, we reached an agreement and a higher salary. Generally, when you radiate warmth and acceptance, conversations seem to flow naturally. You have probably noticed that when 2 or more people who are talking are frowning, they don't have the best conversation. In addition, our brains not only process and understand the actions and words of others, but also their feelings and intentions, as well as the social meaning of their behavior and emotions. So if you've been through life a little, you'll realize from the first moment you see or meet a person how they feel and what their intentions are. If we enter a room with a level of comfort and excitement, we attract people to us. Smile at someone on the street and as a reflex they will smile back. Understanding this reflex and putting it into practice is critical to the success of almost any negotiation skill you need to learn. There are essentially 3 voice tones available to negotiators: 1. The late night FM DJ voice. 2. The positive playful voice. And 3. The direct or assertive voice. Most of the time it's best to use a positive or playful voice. Whatever negotiation or discussion you have, don't forget to smile. Smiling, even while talking on the phone, has a tonal impact that the other person will pick up on. And when people are in a positive frame of mind, they think faster and are more likely to collaborate and solve problems, instead of fighting and resisting. But that doesn't mean you have to smile all the time. Depends on the situation. You can be very direct and to the point, as long as you create safety through a tone of voice that says, I'm fine, you're fine, let's see how we can resolve this situation. Negotiation is not an act of struggle, it is a process of discovery. The goal is to uncover as much information as possible. In addition, remember that labeling an emotion, that is applying rational words to a fear, disrupts its raw intensity. For example, when I can't fall asleep, I label my thoughts by category: music, YouTube, food, etc., depending on what I am thinking at that moment. Similarly, in the case of fear, you can say, now I feel fear, anxiety, and so on. Research shows that the best way to deal with negativity is to observe it without reaction or judgment. Then consciously label each negative feeling and replace it with positive, compassionate, solution-based thoughts. If the other person does not want to communicate in a negotiation, this is always a bad sign. But by acknowledging the other person's situation, you immediately convey that you are listening. And once they know you're listening, they may tell you something that you can use to your advantage. Remember that in every negotiation, in every agreement, the result comes from someone else's decision. If you're trying to sell something, don't start with, do you have a few minutes to talk? Instead ask, is now a bad time to talk? You either get, yes, it's a bad time, followed by a request to leave, or you get, no, it's not, and total focus. Break the habit of trying to get people to say yes. Being pushed for a yes makes people defensive. Our love of hearing yes blinds us to the defensiveness we feel ourselves when someone pushes us to say it. You must understand that receiving a negative answer, although it seems paradoxical, is good for negotiations. This means that the other person you are negotiating with and who answers with no feels in control. No means that the negotiation does not go forward. No is not a failure. It's just that we've been led to believe that no is the anti-yes and therefore a word to be avoided at all costs. But often it just means wait, or I'm not comfortable with that. Learn to hear it calmly. It is not the end of the negotiation, but the beginning. If despite your best efforts the other party won't say no, you're dealing with people who are indecisive or confused or who have a hidden agenda. In such cases, you must end the negotiation and walk away. Yes is the ultimate goal of a negotiation, but don't aim for it at the beginning. If you ask someone to say yes too quickly in a conversation such as, do you like to drink water, Mr. John? That person will raise their guard and see you as an unreliable seller. Saying no makes the speaker feel safe, secure, and in control, so trigger it. By saying what they don't want, your counterpart defines their space and gains the confidence and comfort to listen to you. That's why now is a bad time to talk is always better than do you have a few minutes to talk? Sometimes the only way to get your counterpart to listen and interact with you is by forcing them to say no. That means intentionally mislabeling one of their emotions or desires, or asking a ridiculous question like, it sounds like you want this project to fail. that can only be answered in the negative. If you're a parent, you already use this technique instinctively. What do you do when your kids won't leave the park, the house, the mall? You say, okay, I'm leaving, and you start walking away. I'm going to guess that over half the time they yell, no, wait, and run to catch up with you. No one likes to be abandoned. Persuasion is not about how bright, smooth, or strong you are. It's about the other party convincing themselves that the solution you want is their own idea. So don't counter their ideas with logic or brute force. Ask them questions that open paths to your goals. It's not about you, it's about them. If a potential business partner ignores you, approach them with a clear and concise no question that suggests you're ready to go. Did you give up on this project? It does miracles. I'll give you a recent personal example when a company did not respond to my email. This company owed me some money, so I asked the responsible person, "Have you given up on giving me the money you owe me?" Although until then my emails were ignored, with this question I managed to get an answer from them telling me that they did not give up, they were just very busy during that period. Let's change the register a bit and ask you, do you know what are the sweetest 2 words in a negotiation? I let you think for a bit. You don't know? Let me tell you. The 2 sweetest words in any negotiation are, that's right. That's right is better than yes. Try to reach this answer. Getting to that's how it is in a negotiation creates progress. To get to these words, you can use a summary. In other words, summarize what your counterpart said. The basic elements of a good summary are a label combined with paraphrasing. You can say, I understand that you said that, after which you can repeat what your interlocutor said. Now, let's talk a little about deadlines. Deadlines are often arbitrary, almost always flexible, and hardly ever trigger the consequences we think or are told they will. It's best to keep your own deadlines secret. Approaching deadlines causes people to rush the negotiation process and do impulsive things that are against their interests. As for the most powerful word in negotiations, this is fair. If you are accused of not being fair, you have to understand that the other party may not want to win everything, but just feels overwhelmed by the circumstances. The best response either way is to take a deep breath and restrain your desire to concede. Then you say, okay, I'm sorry, let's stop everything and go back to where I started treating you unfairly, and we'll work it out somehow. The last use of the F word is my favorite because it is positive and constructive. It sets the stage for an honest and empathetic negotiation. Here's how I use it. At the beginning of a negotiation, I say, I want you to feel like you're being treated fairly at all times. So please stop me anytime if you think I'm being unfair, and we'll discuss that issue. Loss aversion. People will take greater risks to avoid losses than to achieve gains. As for prospect theory, it describes how people choose between options that involve risk, as in a negotiation. The theory holds that people are attracted to certain things over probabilities, even when the probability is a better choice. This is called the certainty effect. For example, if you propose to a person, you can win a guaranteed $10 or you can bet and have a 90% chance of winning $20, they will most likely choose the safe option in which they win the $10. Now, let me tell you how to negotiate your salary. In a negotiation, I suggest you let the other side ensure the monetary rewards. I'll give you another personal example. When I was hired at my first job, my future boss asked me what salary I wanted. Although I knew what whoever says an amount first loses, I said I want $500. He was happy to offer me this amount, given that The former employee, whose place I was going to take, was paid much more than that. So, as a general rule, it's good to let the other person make you an offer first. You have to be careful when you let the other person enter, and you have to prepare yourself mentally to resist the first offer. Understand that if you offer a range, meaning an amount between both, and it's a good idea to do this, expect the other person to choose the lower amount. For example, if you are asked what salary you want and there is no other way to find out how much the employer would offer, you can say that on the labor market a similar position is paid between so and so. Let's say between $2,000 and $3,000. The most important thing to remember is that numbers ending in zero inevitably feel like a temporary number and not a final amount. But any number that sounds less rounded, say $3,263, feels like a figure you arrived at as a result of careful calculation. Such numbers feel serious and permanent to your counterpart, so use them to reinforce your offers. So you can offer as the final number an odd number that will induce the idea of your counterpart that it is carefully calculated and not a random one. Likewise, in the salary negotiation, you can also bring up non-monetary rewards such as vacations, health insurance, etc. Many times the employer may not agree to give you more days off. Instead, they may compensate and offer you a higher salary. But no matter how a negotiation ends, there is something called the winner's curse or buyer's remorse. Those gut-wrenching feelings that you've overpaid or undersold. So don't settle for less, and here's a simple rule: never split the difference. If you have a choice between a white shoe and a black one, sharing the difference or making peace with the person who proposed one of the colors would mean that you would wear a black shoe and a white one. Meeting halfway often leads to bad deals for both sides. No deal is better than a bad deal. Then try to avoid using why in a negotiation. No matter what language the word why is translated into, it is accusative. The key to getting people to see things your way is not to confront them with their ideas. You can't leave, but to acknowledge your ideas openly. I understand why you're upset, and then guide them to solving the problem. What do you hope to achieve by leaving? The secret to winning in a negotiation is to offer the other side the illusion of control. Besides, humor and humanity are the best ways to break the ice and remove obstacles. The paradox of power says that the more we insist or force others, the more likely we are to be met with resistance. People respond favorably to requests made in a reasonable tone of voice followed with a because reason. These were just some of the negotiation secrets I learned from Chris Voss. If you want to know more details, I recommend you to read his book. I will put a link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more educational materials like this.